Everybody you've ever met and will meet in your entire life has a way they view themselves, a self-definition, whether it be weak, strong, funny, unfunny, confident, timid, lazy, hardworking, ugly, hot, whatever. Everyone has a way they view themselves. And in today's video, I want to talk about the concept of, I guess, the titles you give yourself or the way you define yourself. So yeah. When I was younger, I was a very sick kid. I was in and out of the hospital a lot. I wasn't very healthy. Had a lot of, allergies, asthma, bronchitis, eczema, etc., etc., etc. Um, you know, it was hard. And when I was raised, or I guess I'm still being raised, I'm only 16. My mother, she is single. She didn't really have a lot of financial stability. We didn't have a dad. We didn't really have any relatives. We didn't really have anything to keep us, stable while I was going through all these things. So due to that, a lot of stress was in the household. There was a lot of kids. I was raised a lot of siblings. Um, and thankfully, because I love my family. But due to that, I began to feel like a burden because, I was acutely aware of all the struggles my family had. It was made very obvious to me from a young age, right? And I began to view myself as a burden, someone who kind of just made life worse. I never really improved it. My only really existence was just my house and the hospital. I didn't really have any social life or friends, and I was homeschooled, so it's not like I had much of a chance at that. So the only way I really viewed myself was from the perspective of, actions. I only really viewed myself from this happened to me, it had this effect, and this happened because of that. Um, and as I got older, I began to take that into other parts of my life. When I was like 13, 14, I was very depressed. And from that, childhood thing of feeling like a burden, I began to, become someone who pushed people away a lot because I was scared of, feeling that way again. Um, and because of that, I pushed people away. I didn't really have any friends. I wasn't really nice to anyone. I wasn't really nice to my family or my siblings or anything like that. And I began to be very suicidal and depressed. And I started just, stay to myself. I used to be in my room all the time. I used to never really leave it. I used to stay up till 6 a.m. all the time watching the anime to, just escape my feelings and escape people. Until one day where, after a couple weeks of not really eating much and staying to myself and staying in my room and staying up all night, I had a seizure. Um, I guess that was the first time I ever felt like close to dying. For the first time in my life, I think people told me, or I guess the first time I realized how much I mattered to people. Especially to my siblings, my mother, my sister, my brother. Um, and I realized the way I viewed myself, it was wrong. And I realized a lot of people nowadays think that way, right? I viewed myself as all of these things that I probably wasn't. At the end of the day, I wasn't a burden. I was just, you know, a kid, who was just struggling to, survive. And I realize now that a lot of people view themselves wrong. You know, Someone who views themselves for a myriad of reasons. Some people might view themselves as, weak. Let's say you get bullied at school and people don't like you and you don't have any friends. So you view yourself as like someone who's unlikable or, weak or like a nerd or whatever the people say nowadays. I've never been to a school, so I don't really know how the bullying system works there. I haven't really done enough research, I guess. Or someone who doesn't get a lot of romantic interaction might view themselves as unattractive or, unlikable or etc., etc., etc. Or someone who, you know, doesn't do a lot of work might view themselves as lazy or, unmotivated. And I realized that once you apply a title to yourself, you cut off the option of growing past that title, right? Um, because a lot of people mistake self awareness for growth. Just because you are aware of something that's an action or whatever, it does not mean you are evolving, right? And once you apply this title to yourself, you lock yourself in this loop. But I guess I want to say that you are not what you think you are. You are not weak because you've been beat. You are not lazy because you haven't done work. You are not unattractive because girls don't, like you. The definition you give yourself isn't based off the experiences you've had. It's about what you choose to do, right? So you might think, because this happened, I'm this, or because this happened, I'm this. But you have to realize the only title that can truly be given to you is what you decide to let yourself be, right? So if you think you're a loser, that would probably make you more likely to be a loser. But if you think you're a winner, you'd be more likely to be a winner because you wouldn't automatically give yourself a title of something that you'd be forced to live up to, right? So what I want to say today is, and to be honest, this didn't have to be a 7-minute video. I just want to make sure that you know that you are not what you've experienced. You are what you choose to do. So from now on, don't view yourself as a sad person or a weak person or a depressed person or someone who doesn't deserve things. View yourself as you. Whatever your name is, whatever your age is, whatever whatever you like, whatever you don't like, that's you, not your experiences, your shortcomings, your good things, your bad things. You are what you choose to live through, and you've lived all the way up to this point. So give yourself the self respect to view yourself as a person and not your experiences. You are you. And if you want to view yourself as a title, view yourself as a person you want to be. The person you want to be doesn't spend all their days dwelling on their shortcomings or their sadness or their anger. They spend their days dwelling on how they're going to improve their life by living it. And don't set titles to limit yourself. I hope this video made some sense. I've re-recorded it like 3 times. I think that was the first time I got through all of it without stopping myself or, almost shedding a tear because I don't like to cry, ever. I don't like crying at all. But yeah, you are not what you've been through. You are what you choose to be. Choose to be great. Choose to be you. Choose to love yourself and choose to do better. You matter. I stream on Twitch, by the way. I'll link you in the description. Goodbye.